What's up, guys? Flavo Oriana. This is the Flavo Oriana MMA show. And UFC 299 is officially in the books. Man. From top to bottom, the card was stacked. Each fight delivered. You had, the first fight of the night, which a lot of people thought that were going to be like a snoozer. It was Marina Moroz versus Joanne Wood, and Joanne Wood ended up retiring after coming off with the victory in her final fight. And that was a curtain jerker up until, Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, which went all 5 rounds. And if you guys placed over 4.5 rounds, and especially if you guys put fight goes to decision, you guys would have made some decent money. But overall, everything was pretty good. Dustin Poirier had a great moment. We had the debut of Michael Venom Page. What's it called? Jack Della Maddalena. Wow, he is the man right there. And then Piotr Jan, he was able to bounce back and come back after losing to Merab Dvalishvili last March, I believe it was. So. But we'll start it off with Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera. Going into the fight, I was favoring Chito Vera mainly because of the fact that the durability of Sean, the way that Chito hits, and when he hits you, he puts a lot of damage. And I knew coming in, Chito was most likely going to be down on the cards just because he notoriously starts very, very slow. And he's always trying to download data, and sure enough, what ends up happening, Sean O'Malley picks up, very quickly as expected. Throws so much volume in round 1. Chito's just standing there, and I think he's trying to process how fast everything is coming, especially after the first fight. And Sean is incredibly faster than when they last fought in 2020. Chito definitely, looked like he was confused and surprised as for the speed that Sean was throwing at him. And it was night and day. I mean, Sean's footwork was way better than Chito's, and Chito's was just trying to process everything, within the first couple rounds. And in round 2, the infamous knee shot that Sean ended up displaying, Sean was throwing jabs, but then he ended up cocking his leg all the way back. And I didn't realize up until, after rewatching the fight a couple of times, that he was setting up that knee. And when he threw that knee, that standing knee, man, it sounded like something definitely cracked, from like an orbital maybe in Chito's skull. Like something definitely may have broken. Some bone must have at least broken in Chito's face when he threw that knee, because that was crazy. And most human beings would have not, been able to withstand that level of damage, absorbed. But Chito Vera is one of the very few humans on this planet that was able to take that type of shot and keep on fighting, and let alone, fight all the way to the judges' scorecard. And then in round 3, it was a little bit more of the same until Chito started to throw a little bit more. And Chito started to pick it up a little bit in rounds 4 and 5, but it was way too late. Sean already had taken so much of a deep lead that there was no way that that Chito was going to be able to win by decision, and he needed to knock out or submit Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley was very aware of the situation, that he was playing keep away whenever Chito would try to hit him, but Sean was still throwing an immense amount of volume that anytime that Sean threw something, Chito would always, clinch up and, cover his own body like this. And it was just more or less like Chito just didn't want to get hit anymore. And like I said, maybe he may have broken something in his face that anytime that Sean hit him in the face, it probably hurt like hell. But Sean cruises. He got 2 50-45s and then a 50-44. I don't recall exactly what round the third judge ended up giving him a 10-8 round. But look, man, I'm not going to dispute it. 50-44 is justifiable. Chito Vera did not show up. He is becoming way too dependable on the fact that he can just have that knockout that like what he had against Frankie Edgar and the knockout that he had against Dominic Cruz. Those type of things are not going to happen often, and let alone it happened frequently against the top level fighters in this world. And Sean O'Malley, look, I didn't think that he was gonna beat Chito Vera, but man, I will say this is that he's definitely improved. He is here to stay. He defended his belt. Even though Chito Vera probably didn't deserve a title shot, I still feel that Sean is, becoming a better and better bantamweight. Now, his call out, not a big fan. Am I going to complain about it? No. But I'm right at the line where I'm not going to bitch about it. He ended up calling out Ilya Topuria. He says that Dana gave me a jet. We're going to Spain. If he would have finished Chito, right, maybe with one of his viral knockouts and whatever, I would have been more okay with it. But the way that he ended up displaying his, outclassed performance is just like, all right, I can deal with this call out. Do I like it? No, not at all. Because I feel like Sean has a fight with Merab. But then another reason why I didn't like his call out is, if you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly bear, man. Like, you called your shot about Ilya Topuria, and then you say within like less than 20 seconds later, you're like, but if you guys need me to, I'll go knock out Merab if that's what it takes. And it's just like, call your shot, be confident. You say you want to fight Ilya Topuria, say I want to fight Ilya Topuria. Don't backpedal and say like, here's the alternative, and that's what kind of bothered me a little bit. But overall, good performance by Sean O'Malley. I think that Sean O'Malley, he proved a lot of doubters on, what type of bantamweight that he is. Many people probably felt that, he probably, he shouldn't be in this position. I mean, I know a lot of people still believe that, Petr Yan was robbed. And you know what? It was a close fight. Do I feel like Petr Yan won? Yes. Do I think it was a robbery? Man, it's tough to tell. I always feel like these guys should never leave anything to the judges, and that's what happens. But yeah, Sean O'Malley's here to stay. Now, as for Chito Vera, Chito Vera needs to rest up. I do not want to see Chito Vera fight anytime soon. That knee shot is so... It was one of the loudest shots I've ever heard from a fighter hitting another fighter. That had nothing to do with a foreign object. And it sounded like Sean O'Malley ended up grabbing a wooden bat and then hitting Marlon Vera over the skull with that. So it's pretty surreal. I just don't want to see Chito fight up until maybe like late fall, and I'm talking about maybe like October-ish, if anything like that. He needs to rest, and that shot, can do some lingering effects if not treated properly. Co-main event, it was Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. A lot of people were questioning, why was Dustin Poirier taking this fight. Dustin felt like, he needed to take this fight because of Eddie Alvarez gave him that same opportunity many years ago when Dustin was on the come up. So it was a way of paying back, to the other lightweights. You can't hold your spot in the sport. If not, you're going to lose it. And Dustin wanted to be active as well. Plus, it was an easier decision for him. He lives in Louisiana. The fight was in Miami. It was about like a 30-minute flight. It makes it so much easier to just commute back and forth, if anything, right? But Dustin Poirier came out there against Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis immediately ended up, applying pressure and was very, very heavy on the grappling. Dustin Poirier, kept on jumping on Gilly and, constantly going for the guillotine and was unsuccessful. It was a very high-paced fight, and Benoit Saint-Denis was really applying that pressure. I felt that Benoit ended up winning round 1. And then in round 2, we got more of the same up until Dustin was able to make it, a dogfight. And next thing you know, the problem with Benoit Saint-Denis, he is all offense, does not take good care of his hand placement. His hand placements were down. That may have been because he was tired. And what did Dustin Poirier do? This man is a very good boxer in MMA standards. Throws that right hook. The thing is that Dustin, he stands southpaw, but his right hand is his power shot. So that's going to be that's going to be his lead hand. And the way that he threw a right hook, very tight, very sharp, hits Benoit right in the jaw, right on the chin. Benoit falls down to the floor, follows through with one more additional punch to seal the deal. Bam! Dustin Poirier knockout. Dustin Poirier was actually the underdog coming into this fight. He was at a plus 175 underdog. All right, if anybody ended up having Dustin Poirier on their, ticket parlay, they definitely made some good money off of it, just because Dustin Poirier ended up coming out as the winner. And you know what? He was the number 2 lightweight coming into the fight. It was a reason why he ended up performing the way that he did. He took advantage of, a lot of deficiencies that Benoit Saint-Denis had. And Benoit Saint-Denis does remind me of a younger Justin Gaethje. Well, why do I say that? Because Justin Gaethje was very reckless when he came in. The man was all offense, no defense. Foot all the way, foot pressing all the way down onto the pedal with no breaks whatsoever. And looked like Benoit got a little bit gassed after round 1, realizing that he exerted so much energy on these takedowns and on these grappling sessions with Dustin. Dustin being the pure vet, he knew how to handle himself in these type of tough situations. And Dustin ended up landing that right hook, dropping Benoit Saint-Denis and then putting him to sleep. What's next for Dustin? Honestly, he came out there a lot more unscathed than I thought he would. I thought Dustin was going to be in a really bad dogfight where he would have been, badly hurt, where the timeline would have been for him to come back sometime at the end of the year. But look, he is unharmed. He didn't take much damage at all, if not any. And there is a champion at lightweight that has called out Dustin Poirier and wants to make a quick turnaround in June. And you know what? Dustin may have secured himself a lightweight title. He says that's the only thing that he hasn't checked off on his list. He's accomplished everything else, which he has. The one thing that's missing on his resume is a lightweight championship. And will he be able to do that? I have serious doubts, because I think Islam is the real deal. I think Islam is, way better than many of us anticipated. And this man has incredible defense, incredible striking, and even better wrestling. So I don't know if Dustin has any possibility of winning this, but I'll tell you what, I will sign me up on that. I know Dustin's going to be a heavy underdog. I would just throw in like $5 to see where it goes. But to be honest, Islam should be able to get through Dustin Poirier. As for Benoit Saint-Denis, he was the number 13th lightweight in the world. Probably stays, where he's at in the rankings, but he had his opportunity now that he was giving his opportunity to catapult himself into the lightweight division. He failed at that, and he's probably going to have to fight a couple of times to get back to where he was just fighting at. I feel like they're probably going to give him somebody like a Drew Dober, who is another action fighter, really doesn't take care of himself, but that will be a fun-ass fight. And then we had MVP versus Kevin Holland, and then MVP versus Kevin Holland was interesting just because MVP, coming from Bellator, he's a big free agent signing that the UFC ended up having. They wanted to pair him up with Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland was just frustrated. I mean, he ended up winning round 2, and that was the only round that he ended up winning. MVP ended up winning by unanimous decision. And MVP, was just standing from a ridiculous range, right? Where he was start throwing like lunging punches from like 10 feet out and having Kevin Holland all frustrated on the timing, the speed, the distance, where Kevin Holland couldn't hit him, but MVP could just hit him, and it was just remarkably frustrating to see, Kevin Holland get frustrated. But MVP is just so damn good that he knew how to mess the psyche of another fighter. And Kevin Holland, we always see him talking. This man was not talking. He was throwing up the middle finger. He was frustrated. He just honestly had just shut up at that point, and he just didn't do anything. He was complaining. So it was just a lot of frustration. I felt like that's what led to Kevin Holland's loss, and MVP just dug right into that. But overall, MVP got the job done in his UFC debut. Who's next for him? To be honest, I mean, they're gonna have to matchmake him properly. He says he doesn't want to fight Wonder Boy because him and Wonder Boy are really cool with each other, and it would be a boring fight because they both have the same styles. I honestly really do believe that MVP versus the winner of Luque versus Buckley would make more sense, especially if Luque ends up winning. And as for Kevin Holland, I mean, you could put Kevin Holland with anyone, these people. It doesn't really matter because Kevin Holland is just a fun fighter, and I don't think he's going to be fighting for belts. So Kevin Holland versus anybody makes sense. And then we ended up having Gilbert Burns versus JDM. Gilbert Burns versus JDM was interesting just because Gilbert Burns took a very good approach to how to fight JDM. Basil Hafez ended up putting out the blueprint and exposed how bad of a wrestling defense JDM does have. And Gilbert Burns ended up imposing that strategy. Now that strategy lasted only for 2 rounds because at the ending of this, almost at the ending of the third round, it was right. I think with like a minute 45 left. You saw JDM, digging deep. It was all or nothing. He was able to maneuver himself out of a grappling exchange with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns got up, JDM got up, and JDM immediately threw that knee, and it caught Gilbert Burns right on the chin. It hurt him. He fell onto the floor, and then JDM was just wailing punches. Now, unfortunately, Gilbert Burns ended up eating, possibly an additional 10 to 12 punches more than he should have, because Gilbert Burns was just out at that point, and the referee was cruel. I forget what referee that was, but I will say this is just that Gilbert Burns, he looks like he's getting older. He looks like he is not going to be fighting. He looks like he shouldn't be fighting, the upper echelons of welterweights. I think they should just put him in there, middle tier, and see where he goes from there. Just because, like, he might be that gatekeeper of the top 5, but he's taking way too much damage in these fights where more than he should. And JDM, he called out Shavkat. I actually love that call out. It gives me like a little bit of chills and stuff like that. But what makes me interested is that JDM said that there's a lot of scary fellas in this division, but he's like, I'm the scariest one of them all. And it's just like, whoa, like that's what you really feel. And he calling out Shavkat, that is a King Kong type of a call out. The man has no fear, and I'm really all for that. And then lastly, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Petr Yan entered this fight on a 3-fight losing streak versus Song Yadong, who, just came off of a victory over Chris Gutierrez. I feel that coming into the fight, Petr Yan, it was all or nothing, because if he would have lost this, then he would have been, in that rare air of 4-fight losing streaks. And usually fighters that have a 4-fight losing streak don't really come out of it a la Tony Ferguson, right? And I don't think that Petr Yan would have been Tony Ferguson, but man, the way that he ended up starting round 1, Song was just picking up Piotr was just, trying to download data. Song was giving Piotr so many different looks because he was, reminding him, hey, I can't take you down and I will hurt you if I take you down. And Piotr was defending that as desperately as possible because he may have had PTSD after fighting, Merab Dvalishvili, right? And Merab just toyed him around all over Las Vegas last year. So I don't think he wanted to deal with that again. But Piotr Jan picked it up in rounds 2 and 3. The boxing, he started piecing up Song. He started attacking Song, in many different combinations. And Song had no answer for it whatsoever because when Piotr starts going, forget about it. You can't stop the man. All right. To this day, I think Piotr Jan would have been champion if and only if he didn't throw that dumb knee at Aljamain Sterling in March of 2021. That changed the trajectory of his entire UFC career, and since then, things have went downhill up until him beating Song Yadong on Saturday. Now, where does Piotr Jan go from here? Well, honestly, Piotr Jan, he's in a weird spot because Corey Sandhagen looks like he's going to fight Umar, right? You just had Sean versus Chito, right? Sean had called out Elite Topuria. Sean has called out, boxers, Floyd Mayweather, Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia. It looks like Sean doesn't really want any parts of fighting, against the current, top 5 in bantamweight. It's just seems like Sean's just looking for money fights. But I will say this, Piotr Jan, if I'm Piotr Jan, I'm calling out, I would say maybe Henry Cejudo. That's the name that you could get. I think he could beat Henry Cejudo. Chito Vera, although they both start incredibly slow. So you have options, And if anything, you could always do Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt winner versus Piotr Jan, and that's something that you can have. And then Song Yadong, he's going to go back to where he was. I mean, he had really good victories. He struggled against your Corey Sandhagens of the world. Honestly, there is beef between Chito and Song. Song ended up getting a split decision victory over Chito that Chito really didn't appreciate, and you can just put that as a fight. You can put that as a fight night. But yeah, guys, UFC 299 is officially in the books. What's it called? Prelims are pretty good. Jailton Almeida stopping the hype train of Curtis Blades stopping the hype train of Jailton Almeida. We had Macy Barber, my favorite. She ended up beating Caitlin Sermonaro. It's kind of get hard to used to. We had Robelis de Spain getting a 12-second knockout against Josh Parisian. And yeah, we had Michelle Pieta kneeing the shit out of Michael Olazechek. So it was a pretty good fun of fights. And then this Saturday we got Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. So interesting day, interesting week that's coming up. But so then, guys, I am Flavoriana. Thank you for tuning in for my reaction and my analysis, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, guys.